Trial. Trial. Siya, si Jyoti, yaman na. Ha? Wala pa sila, ka, Kwan.
You have audio na, sir.
Meron na?
May audio ka na, sir. Yes, sir. Happy anniversary, everyone. Yes, sir.
Walang nagsulod? O kung ako lang ipapangol kayo na?
Hindi. Naka-off, sir, tanan. We are just waiting. Good morning, everyone. We're just waiting for Mayor Jerry to log in. And then mabigyan kita sa atin na program. So, thank you. Sir Manchi, please stand by. Thank you.
Okay. Gua ko. Eric. Eric. Suryaga.
Joe Biden presents a plan to get to the calm. The calm? The dignified old grandfather chasing around his grandkids all over the yard. Boy, do they think that you're stupid or what?
Good day, everyone, and welcome to today's Iloilo Business Online, the Iloilo Business Club 30th Anniversary Special presented to us by Pam Concepcion Power Corporation, Iloilo Business Club, and the Daily Guardian. Our theme for today's episode is accelerating recovery and resiliency of businesses in Iloilo. So later on, you will have an opportunity to ask questions during the question and answer portion. I am Gwen Diaz, soft skills training consultant, and I am very, very honored to be here today to be joining this distinguished group of participants and speakers. Okay, so to kick off our conference call this morning, I would like to request uh, the chairman of the Iloilo Business Club, Mr. Juan Jose H. Chamora III, for his welcome remarks.
Good morning, dear friends, members, and partners. On behalf of the Board of Trustees, I would like to welcome all of you to the 30th founding anniversary celebration of the Iloilo Business Club. This is an important milestone for IBC, and commemorating it amidst battling a pandemic makes us all introspective and reminiscent of our journey. For the past 30 years, IBC worked hard being an important development partner in the province and city of Iloilo and Western Visayas. What started as just a simple intention of representing the interests of the business sector evolved to the pursuit of opportunities to influence desired changes in our community through the Pearl Project, the preparation of the Iloilo River Master Plan, the advocacy for better infrastructure, and the formulation of a destination marketing plan, and our first region-wide project, CREED Plus. For every position, paper made, official statement issued, meetings organized, involved in local and regional committees, and CSR projects undertaken, we have established the IBC brand that distinguishes and elevates the Ilonggo business community. We have our members and our private, civic, and public sector partners to thank for fueling the growth of IBC to become the organization that it is today. We constantly face a lot of challenges, but we are extremely grateful for the trust and willingness to work with us to accomplish our projects and dreams for Iloilo. I also take this opportunity to thank our colleagues who serve on the board since IBC inception for generously and selflessly dedicating time and resources to ensure that we are led to where we are now. You may not have been given the recognition you deserve, but know that we sincerely appreciate your humility and service. We also express gratitude to our Secretariat then and now for our hard work, grit, and loyalty. This simple outline celebration of IBC's anniversary also signals the kind of task we face ahead with this pandemic. It may seem that the restart button has been pressed, and while we still have our factory setting, the business environment is no longer the same. I hope that while we feel discouraged and uncertain, let us draw this strength and inspiration from each other to embrace our vulnerabilities with a sense of openness and renewed faith. Iloilo was able to overcome adversities in the past, and we have managed to survive its time. I end by thanking the Daily Guardian, our sponsors, special guests, and resource speakers for making our 2 day virtual celebration memorable. We have carefully selected our theme and speakers to cater to the information needs of the business community. We look forward to lively discussion with our experts, and we encourage your Zoom participants and those in the social media to ask questions. Thank you for celebrating with us. Happy 30th anniversary, Iloilo Business Club. Stay safe, everyone. Thank you again.
Thank you so much, Mr. Hamora. You have been very instrumental in instilling confidence in the people around you, especially among your team in the Iloilo Business Club. Your message is actually very clear. Business owners need to balance between protecting their business, accelerate recovery from COVID-19, and retool their company to adapt to a changing world. Thank you so much, sir. Okay, so the 30th anniversary of the Iloilo Business Club marks a very momentous event as it celebrates a very remarkable accomplishments of business sectors in Iloilo City. The journey of IBC highlights the success stories of Ilonggo businessmen as they rise above every trial to build a resilient business community. Amidst the pandemic, businesses in Iloilo continue to explore possibilities, ways, and discover new business models to innovate and adapt to the new normal. Today, October 20, we will focus our discussions on ways on how business recovery can be done or restarted. Our speaker will underscore the need to strike a reasonable balance between safeguarding public health and restarting our economy as well. Okay, so this time while we are waiting for Mayor Jerry P. Treñas, there will be a very, very special video presentation to be given to us by Dr. Winston Conrad Paduhinog, President of the University of Asia and the Pacific. So a former executive director of IBC and Iloilo Business Club is proud of his accomplishment and humility. Even though he is now based in Metro Manila, he never fails to help IBC in strategic planning activities and partnership with UAAP and in collaboration with LGU activities. Okay.
To Mr. Manchi Hamora, Chairman of the Iloilo Business Club, to the officers and the members of the club, and of course, to Ms. Leia Lara, its dynamic executive director. I congratulate all of you on your 30th founding anniversary. Incidentally, it's all work, I mean, was with you in your club as the executive director, as one of its executive directors. You know, I started working in the club because it was a result of an agreement between Mr. Tony Hon, one of your past chairmen as well, and a very good friend, and Dr. Bernie Villegas. They said that after I finish my studies as a scholar in the Center for Research and Communication, which is now the University of Asia and the Pacific, I should go back to Iloilo and serve Iloilo, which I tried to fulfill, working with the club, and those were very memorable times for me, with very good executives and who also serve as my mentors, no, during that time. Well, you know, these are the pandemic times, and it is very, very difficult for many sectors, especially for the business sector. But I recall during the time that the motto of the club was creating the momentum of progress. And I think, for me personally, I think we have to go back to that once again. We need to create that momentum. And the Iloilo Business Club is the best forum which we can create this momentum. It's because it is only in this club where you can have a shared mission for communication and collaboration among many stakeholders, not just the business sector, also the local government, the academe, the other NGOs, etc. So I can recall how Iloilo Business Club was very instrumental in institution building. Was one of those that started institutions like ILED, assisted it, and as well as it was very instrumental in the Dinagyang Foundation. These are very classic work uh, of any business club. And the IBC is very, very successful in that. So it has a very good track record. And I'm very sure that with with you, all of you together, and work through this club, we'll be able to uh, reignite the engines of commerce there in Iloilo, which I think and I believe is doing very well, far better compared to the other provinces and cities, or many provinces and cities in throughout the Philippines. So I remembered also your past chairman. I remembered my first chairman was Mr. Tawa Lee, and many of the other chairmen I've worked with when I was already not connected with IBC, but with the university, where we continue to collaborate very close with you. And I have to tell you, since I'm Manilongo here, I will continue to collaborate with my home province. So rest assured, you have somebody here in this part of the Philippines always thinking about his home province. And of course, I remember Minying, Marabilia as well in a number of projects. And of course, I think Marisa Segovia. I remember her as well. So once again, I would like to congratulate all of you, especially the dynamic executive directors that you have hit there, Leia. And I wish you all the luck on this very important undertaking you're doing. That is, create the momentum of progress once again for Iloilo. So once again, congratulations, and I hope to visit you someday and meet all of you in person. Thank you very much.
Thank you so much, Dr. Paduhinog. And you have truly established a very significant landmark in Iloilo Business Club. And the Ilonggos are so proud of what you have become. And we are really very, very thankful for all the help that you are giving or extending Iloilo Business Club for the past years. Thank you so much. A lot of Ilonggos are still feeling the impact from the coronavirus pandemic, but our local community is rebounding under the leadership of our city mayor. He is one of the founding trustee of Iloilo Business Club, served in the board of IBC, and has significantly contributed to its growth as vice chairman prior to his active career as a politician here in Iloilo. Ladies and gentlemen, I'm very proud to present to you the Honorable Mayor Jerry P. Treñas.
Ladies and gentlemen, mayong aga sa inyo tanan. I just came from my COVID team. I make it a point that we have a meeting of the COVID team every day so that we will know the number of cases, how the city is faring, and what else we should do to make sure that the Ilonggos are safe. Let me take this opportunity to thank our beloved friends and benefactors in the private sector for helping and supporting our initiatives since day one of our fight against COVID-19. Your theme, accelerating recovery and resiliency of business in Iloilo, is significant as we move forward in reopening our economy. The pandemic may persist for quite some time and adversely affect socio-economic status of our people. Yet we have no choice but to work with the virus as we exert efforts to cushion the impact of the economic effects of this crisis. Your theme, there is a need for us to strictly practice and enforce health and safety protocols, particularly in public places and even in the comforts of our homes. We should safeguard the Ilonggos who play vital roles in our vibrant economy. We have to ensure our capacities and capabilities to manage cases effectively and efficiently. And to this end, the Iloilo City COVID laboratory will be opening soon. We are looking at about 2 weeks, and then we will be able to test uh, faster and more efficiently. We are hopeful that we are on the right track in the war against the unseen enemy as we unite to heal as one. With a clear vision and goal, we look forward to working together through active participation and strong support of all our stakeholders. As we cannot see each other face to face, we continue doing business virtually. We have started to embrace our usual routine now, but under the new normal. We have to buy local to support local and patronize homegrown players for us to bounce back. We want to spread and share the good news about becoming resilient, but without sacrificing being safe and healthy. Together, let us work harder as we look forward to be fully back to business soon. After this meeting, I will be meeting with the PPP Center because there are several projects that we are still pushing in the midst of this pandemic. The privatization of our two big markets, the central market and the terminal market, the privatization of our slaughterhouse, where a lot of local businessmen are very interested, the waste to energy for our Kalahunan dam site, for which there is already an interested party, and hopefully we will be working with them soon. We are also pushing for the reclamation for a project for Iloilo City because we know that land in Iloilo City is scarce, and if we do not have additional land, then the other municipalities will bypass development in Iloilo City. Know that even in the midst of this pandemic, we will still work on our beautiful plazas, the Plaza Libertad, the Haro Plaza, the La Paz Plaza, Arevalo Plaza, for which Iloilo City already has funds of its own to work on. We will also work for the new legislative building, which will house the Sangguniang Panglungsod and other offices of the city government. This will allow physical distancing in City Hall so that our City Hall will be safe for everyone. I want you to understand that in the midst of this pandemic, your city government continues to look for ways and means so that Iloilo City will continue to develop. And I am certain that with you as our partners, we will achieve our goal to make sure that Iloilo will level up. Again, my warmest congratulations on your successful celebration. Thank you very much, Uswag Iloilo.
Thank you so much, Mayor Jerry P. Treñas. In these unprecedented times, Iloilo City continues to take the necessary and important steps to help contain the spread of the COVID-19 virus. And thank you so much for stepping up to the challenges of carrying on and leading Ilonggos to move forward during this pandemic. Before we move on to the presentation of our guest speaker, I would like to acknowledge the following companies who really worked hard and coordinated with IBC to come up with this very, very valuable IBC online. We would like to thank the Spring Valley Tech Corporation, a Globe Partner Network covering Panay area, and GCash aggregator for helping us with our raffle prizes for our 30th anniversary. So I would like to inform everyone that there would be 10 lucky winners for the raffle. So this will be the Globe GCash will notify all of you through your email. So there will be 10 upon your registration. They will be looking into the 10 winners, but we will have a separate 6 winners for all those who will be able to give valuable questions to our guest speaker after his talk. Okay, so we will be reminding all of you, or just click the link and then get a chance to win prizes from GCash. Okay, so this time, ladies and gentlemen, we move on to the moment that we have been waiting for, the lecture of one of the most prominent lecturer in the Philippines. We will be looking into a clear picture of how Iloilo City is coping up and what economic formula are we going to use to cope up with the pandemic. So this time, I would like to introduce to you our keynote speaker for this morning. Our speaker is a former World Bank IFC governance consultant, columnist, book author, former chair of the marketing cluster, program director for real estate, and professor of global marketing at the Ateneo Graduate School of Business. He is also a senior fellow on governance at the IPMI International Business School in Jakarta. After more than 3 decades of combining academic work and combining serious or senior executive positions, Professor Soriano is currently the executive director of the Wong Bernstein Group, an Asia-Pacific-based strategic advisory firm that specializes in family governance and next-generation leadership. He is also senior advisor at Post and Powell, a fintech advisory group based in Singapore, and an active member of the Singapore Institute of Directors. Now, living his third professional life, his advocacy related to business model, innovation, strategic management, and corporate governance has made him a sought-after senior advisor to family-owned businesses in Asia and resource speaker in international conferences in the United States, Canada, UK, ASEAN, and Africa. Due to his strategic advocacies, he has been recognized and invited to lecture and deliver talks at dozens of universities in Asia and North America, notably Harvard University and University of San Francisco. Professor Soriano holds a Bachelor of Arts degree in History, minor in Economics, degree from University of the Philippines, an MBA in De La Salle University, doctorate units at the UP National College of Public Administration, and has an executive diploma in directorships at the Singapore Management University. He also pursued postgraduate education, specializing on behavioral finance at the Harvard Kennedy School of Government and at the National University of Singapore Business School, focusing on ASEAN family businesses. His last executive engagement was a group CEO of the Bello Medical Group. Prior to Bello, he held several or various positions as chairman of Sun Trust Developers, founding CEO of Resorts World, founding head of the Mega World Lifestyle Malls, country CEO of Singapore-based Electronic Realty Associates, group head and VP of Greenfield Development Corporation under United Laboratories Group. Presently, he sits in the board as independent director of Resorts World Manila and Emperador Distillers. He also sits as director and or board advisor of 25 ultra-high net worth families in the ASEAN region. Professor Soriano writes a business column in several Philippine newspapers in the US and business magazines in the EU and the Middle East. He is currently finishing his third book on family governance and succession following his best-selling book entitled Ensuring Family Business Legacy, Powerful Insights About Leadership and Succession. Ladies and gentlemen, please welcome, join me in welcoming Professor Enrique M. Soriano.
Thank you. Thank you, Rowena. Let me just check my file. And again, salamat gid sa inyo tanan for the invitation. It's an honor, it's a privilege. But let me fix my file first. Something's, let me, I'm just charging it. Okay. Can I request for the disable of my screen share? Can the host disable the participant screen share, please? I need to, can I request again? Leia, pwede ko ka-request so I can access my slide.
Trial.
I still am disabled. Pwede na?
Trial.
I still am disabled.
Trial.
Pwede na?
Trial.
Hindi pa ako kasulod. Pwede mapa-disable what?
Trial.
I'll try again, ha? Still host disabled participant screen sharing. So I cannot share my slides?
Trial.
Okay, pwede na. I'm in. All right, thank you. Okay. So again, it's a pleasure. Thank you to
Trial.
a good friend, Manchi, and of course to my former Ateneo MBA student, an excellent student, Terence, and of course to Alanson for this invitation, and to Leia for
Trial.
actually facilitating the coordination efforts. So I'd like to start with this topic,
Trial.
which is very close to me. Closing is never an option. Becoming a resilient organization in the face of adversity. So let me start
Trial.
with my slide. So like what Rowena mentioned, these are some of the engagements I've had in the private sector. Some of them are not
Trial.
related, but essentially just a recap of what I've been doing for the past 34 years in
Trial.
the sector. I'm currently doing a lot of things, especially with the distress organizations that are happening all over the Philippines, including countries where I'm
Trial.
currently engaged in, helping companies do a lot of turning around,
Trial.
whether it's putting in funds and doing a lot of other interventions.
Trial.
I also wrote this book, like what Romena mentioned, the one in the red. I was able to launch it in Harvard sometime 3 years ago.
Trial.
And this is my academic background. So my advocacy now really is to save
Trial.
as many businesses as we can possibly can. And that is the very reason why I gladly said yes to this opportunity to talk in front of
Trial.
the IBC group. So saving lives, saving livelihoods, and saving a lot of SMEs. So I want to start with this webinar objectives. It's navigating the
Trial.
crisis. It's identifying, creating your role as a business owner. And it's actually becoming a resilient enterprise more than anything else. So again, attribution must go to those that I have done research with. And I want to start with this slide. The SMEs is one of the hardest hit sectors. It represents 98.6. To be exact, it represents 98.57% of all businesses in the country. And 80% of these are family-owned enterprises. It contributes close to 40% of our GDP and employs more than 70% of the workforce. And after doing a lot of studies with WB, 30% are on the brink of collapse. So that's a whopping, what, 300,000 companies might go unless we mobilize and do a lot of things. So I remember this slide. This was a talk I did with the Philippine Daily Inquirer, organized event at the Manila Polo Club, sometime end of January. And I still remember this because it took kind of front page in the business section. And this is what I highlighted. Change, okay, there will be a lot of changes. Change will be huge in 2020. And I articulated this knowing fully well that I flew in from Shanghai 2 days before. And this was one of my slides. New global risks will emerge, health risks. And it was packed. So I'm not Madame Auring, but at the end of the day, March 15 was the day we can all remember, which started a lot of things, dramatic changes which severely impacted the global economy. So admittedly, most businesses are really hurting now. And because we live in what we call a super VUCA world, where it's volatile, it's uncertain, it's complex, and it's ambiguous. And businesses are hurting. Some will call this a black swan. My colleague in New York, a fellow colleague and consultant, said, coronavirus is a dress rehearsal for a more potent virus, which is 100 times more dangerous than coronavirus. Now, whether it's true or not, businesses must be resilient and it must do whatever it takes to survive because we generate employment, we help the economy. So just for purposes of understanding where we are now, from a purely economic perspective, this was our second quarter letdown, 16.5%, dramatic drop, COVID-19. Where we are, we have outperformed in a negative way the 1985 crisis, where Marcos was booted out during the People Power Revolution. If you look at it plainly, here, we also were impacted during the Asian financial crisis. 9/11, SARS, you name it, Ebola, and a lot of things. Then the global financial crisis. So if you look at it, the economy, come to think of it, I just want to highlight this. This is what you call the W-shaped economy. This is the V shape. This is a distorted V, short of a U, and this was an easy bouncing back. This saved the day for us because of the OFW markets. But come to think of it, look at the Marcos period. Look at where we are. Of course, we are going to go up now because the economy has gradually reopened. But you can imagine that this crisis has dramatically changed the whole landscape. And businesses must mobilize, must move, must change its business model because it's a job killer of the century. And clearly, no doubt, the Philippines is heading to its deepest economic recession in what? 40 years. So don't ask me if I'm an alarmist. I'm sharing you the facts that what people are experiencing now is pretty much the tip of the iceberg. And that iceberg is deep, that even the IMF chief economist said it's going to be worse than the Asian financial crisis that might even rival the Great Depression. So that hard lockdown was really the culprit. And like what Bacon would normally say, the cure was worse than the disease. Right? I wrote an article in the Panay News and in Daily Guardian on the need to address important ingredients to bounce back. And I've wrote a series of articles in the Daily Guardian hand-holding business owners to change the way they think. I even wrote an article in Daily Guardian on change or be changed. It was sent to World Bank. And the key here really is to address where you are. So let me walk you through. These are what we call the potential losers. According to Decode Economic Financial Consulting, it's a global consulting firm, you can see where the impact is. So the pure red is tourism and leisure. I think we know that for a fact. Then the next impact would be the aviation and maritime industry. Then automotive. Then after automotive, the red is changing colors. Construction and real estate. Then manufacturing. Non-essentials, then financial services. If you makita nyo ang red, naga-pinkish na siya because it is moderately affected. But the hard hit is the real red, the lower 6, 7, 8 o'clock. And education. Then oil and gas. So ask yourselves, where are you in all of this? Right? On the other hand, there are the potential winners. The pure green, obviously, medical supply and services, food processing, personal and healthcare, ICT or information technology, e-commerce, and agriculture. So put yourselves in a situation where either you're in the red or in the green, which means you need to step back, reboot, and reflect. This week, I wrote an article at Daily Guardian about the power of strategic planning. I tried to read into it. I don't know what day it came out, but the fact of the matter is you need to get out of your comfort zone and do something. Look at the real GDP of our ASEAN neighbors. Everybody is dropping. The only exception is Vietnam. Right? And I'll talk about it a bit later. So what does this tell all of us, business owners and those that are members of the IBC club? As the world begins its slow pivot from managing the COVID-19 crisis to recovery and the reopening of economies, it's clear that the lockdown has had a profound impact on how people live. And truth be told, in a muted recovery, some industries will take 5 years to get back to pre-COVID levels. So let's look at the McKinsey model. So if you notice, recovery can start anywhere from 2021 and it could stretch all the way to 2025. So where are we now? The red obviously tells us that the industries that fall under red could compromise the viability of the business. For instance, hotels and food services. Possible recovery is sometime 2024. So if you have a debt carry, no, may utang ka, how do you now start the process of restructuring? Now, on the bright side, may blue siya. Ano ni siya mga blue? And I've identified some na medyo damo dila sa Iloilo. For instance, wholesale trade. Muted recovery will likely happen by the end of 2022. But it will start to recover as early as first quarter of 2021, which is just 3 months from now. Right? Admin support services might also recover. In short, kung makita nyo diri sa dalom, sa blue, and I will illustrate again, and this is going to be helpful to all of you. Diri siya ang recovery. Oh. It may not be pre-COVID level, pero ang iyang recovery short lang, which means short, it will bounce back to pre-COVID. But ang hotel, it will take some time unless you do something dramatic. Now, I sit in the border resorts world. We have close to 5,000 hotel rooms. It has impacted. Even gaming has impacted. Our partners are the Star Cruises. It has been impacted as well. But what I'm saying, and one thing's clear, those here should now start preparing for that recovery because it will happen, whether you like it or not. Same here. Construction. Recovery has actually started, but full recovery will probably take 2.5 years. So, the blue offers positive insights. So, kung diin ka mo, try to think about it. Where you are. Of course, healthcare, it has since recovered. But the fact of the matter is, try to be strategic. Try to understand where your businesses are and define your plans. So, are things really bad? Some say yes, some say no. But for me, at the end of the day, we need to try to keep our mind in solutions mode. We cannot continue to be depressed. We cannot continue to simply do nothing while the world is moving. So not all bad things are meant to be bad. Right? And therefore, as a business leader, as a key strategist of your organization, you need to start leading the charge. And how do you lead the charge? First, what are the nagging questions of business owners? The safety of the workforce and the family. The owner's health and safety as well. I have four good friends. 3 friends passed away. Business owners. One friend of mine owns a huge business with almost 27,000 employees. He passed away sometime June. Now we're helping him regroup. So solvency, the state of the business, the workforce assistance that you need to, the debt carry, the restructuring. I have a friend of mine who owns banks around 28 billion pesos. You can imagine how much interest that he is paying every month, around 130 million pesos a month. And all of a sudden, we are just simply doing a lot of intervention. Your impaired credit lines. Banks are weather friends. They are holding back and coming up with a lot of excuses. Then speed and decisiveness, the need to plan under a difficult scenario. You need to make some critical decisions on layoffs, retrenchments, and the speed in pivoting to new approaches and processes. And more importantly, the impact on the family. Should we pursue austerity measures now to weather this and navigate this storm? So all of this boils down to 3 things. Your leadership, the unity of the family and the organization and the workforce, and your resiliency. So for me, after doing a lot of advisory work in Asia, there are 3 things that the business owner would normally subject himself or herself into. Either he's a pessimist, an optimist, or a realist. So I want to challenge the attendees today. Either one. The pessimist, an optimist, or a realist. A pessimist complains about the wind. An optimist expects it to change. And a realist adjusts the sail. IBC members are, I think, solid. You know why? Because they've been through crises from the 80s up until now. So therefore, you need to ask yourselves, if you're a pessimist, this is who you are. Person feels hopeless with new changed realities and will become highly conservative. Behavior is demotivating to the workforce, resulting in a low employee morale. I have a client and a good friend of mine based in Singapore. He's 74 years old or 73. He has around 12,000 employees. He is listed. And all of a sudden, right after their circuit breaker, March and April, he told his team and his children, I want to cut the workforce by 70%. which is a whopping what? More than 8,000 employees will lose their jobs. And the children and the board asked me if I can convince him. And I tried my luck many times. He didn't want to answer me. Until one day, finally summoned enough strength to talk to me because he knows I will convince him. And the simple question I simply raised was, are you ready to really cut 8,000 employees? Because there's still an opportunity to do some tweaking. We can concoct some things that might not necessarily take out 8,000 employees. Ano hambal niya sa akin? Professor, I've already decided. I said, second question, why did you embark on this 70% dramatic cut of your workforce? Ano hambal niya? He doesn't want to go through the trauma of the 97 crisis, where he almost lost his shirt. And he said, I'm 73. That was 1997. I was barely 50 years old. Kaya ko na iya. But at 73, I don't want to go through this traumatic event anymore. I said, if I'm going to do some numbers with your team, would you still consider? He said, you can do whatever you want, but my mind is set. So immediately I gathered the CFO. I told the CFO and the CEO and the children, do your numbers and do it well, because in 2 weeks, I'm going to convince him again. So they came up with the numbers. I also had my team here in Manila and in Singapore do the numbers. And we all collectively agreed na hindi kinanlan 70% ang i-cut. We said we can cut 30%, around 3,000 plus people. So the day came and I convinced him and I told him, you don't need to cut 70. It's actually 30%. And your CFO said, you can weather this storm for the next 3 years with just 30%. He said, I will think about it. Then I asked his wife, how is his state of mind? Ano sabat sang wife niya? Depressed. He doesn't go out of the room. He only goes out to eat lunch, comes back in the afternoon, and sleeps the whole day. He is really depressed. And the wife said, you better talk to him every day if you can. So on a regular basis, I started to communicate. And on the 4th day after talking to him, siguro nakulitan, he finally relented. Sige, we'll try your idea. You know, what were the ramifications if we proceeded with the 70% cut? His quality workforce, his senior executives who were loyal to him from day one, will all disappear, pakinabangan sang iban. So it was better to cut the 30 than the 70. And finally, he relented. So he's the kind of person that I classify as a pessimist. May ara man optimist dira sa inyo. He's a person who is a positive thinker, who firmly believes that things will change for good very quickly, continues to run the business the same old ways. An optimist who doesn't change will most likely perish. Damo dira sa Lilo, mas damo pagid sa Bacolod. In short, they wait because they're an optimist, but that's not the way to think strategic, because the best option is to become a realist. What's a realist? A person who adjusts the sail, who is alert and watchful of changing realities, and is prepared to deal with it by changing and adjusting the business. Though bamboo siya. So, having said that, this is a black swan of unimaginable proportions. But history has proven that economies have recovered after any black swan event and even perform much better. So, what are we waiting for, right? And this event of the IBC is a platform for you to rethink and re-energize yourselves as business owners. Hindi pwede ara ka lang daya sa corner and be depressed. Because in every black swan, there are patterns, and sometimes you can use those to create your own defenses. Right? So, just to highlight this point, I'm going to share with you 7 approaches that you can really use. This is what I model for most of my engagements overseas. And the first one is accepting. Accepting the changed realities is the first step. You accept that everything will change, from customer behavior, demand cycles, supply chain disruptions, government policies, and so on. So the first thing is to accept. The second is to believe in yourself, that you are a seasoned business owner, that you have seen many adversities in the past, that you have the ability to ride this out. Kaya mo gani isang 1980s, isang 97, isang 2000, and this current adversity is one more challenge. Second, you believe in your business because you have a deep understanding of your customer, whatever you're offering, and you know the industry structure. The third is the belief in external responses that come from large institutions, that in the next 3 to 4 months, a vaccine is arriving. So instead of dara ka lang sa kwarto mo, you might as well do something because anytime soon the vaccine is arriving. Right? So then the next is what? After believing in yourself, you need to start preparing a scenario planning. What's that scenario planning? Istoryahon nyo. Maistoryanay ka mo sa planning. U-shape kita. U-shape, V-shape. V-shape is within the year. U-shape usually 1 to 3 years. Or L-shape, more than 3 years. So look at the economies of Asia. If you're doing cross-border transaction, tanawon mo din ang Philippines. Philippines has been impacted, no doubt about it. India is worse. Thailand is worse. Look what's happening in Thailand now. Right? The protest is getting into the thousands. Plus, they have maturing debts to pay. Their external debt to GDP ratio is going to dramatically hit them. Then the Philippines. But hey, if you're doing cross-border transactions to these 3 countries, China, Vietnam, and Taiwan, V-shape sila. Naka-recover na. And I'm going to talk about it. Look at the light green and the blue. Ara na sila sa positive territory. Kitaya ari pata sa negative territory. And this is where you need to understand the market. That most likely, we are going towards a U-shaped recovery. So, which means it's just a question of time. So what is a V-shape like China, Taiwan, and Vietnam? Rapid recovery. No loss of output. Positive GDP sila. Because they were able to tame the virus. Diri sa Philippines, ginhulat naton ang virus makadto diri sa aton shores. And then we are street fighting the virus. Sila because of their years of experience sa SARS 15 years ago, what happened? They were there to block the entry of the virus. Nakasulod ang iban, but they were able to prevent. Look at Vietnam. Look at Taiwan. Especially Vietnam, it has 1,141-kilometer border with China. January pa lang yan, block na nilang China. Kitaya ginhulata, and we fought China. We fought the virus in our shores. U-shape. Look at U-shape. Shock breaks growth trend. Right? What's going to happen? It's going to be longer. The worst is L-shape. Real structural damage. So ask yourselves, diin ta subong. Iloilo is far better than Manila. Right? So what are we doing? We need to understand. That's why we need to create scenario analysis. Get a realistic view of your starting position. Develop scenarios for your future play. Example, Scenario 1, masyadong clear na ang future, prepare a plan. Medyo hindi pa clear, come up with alternatives. Range of possible future scenarios. And paggrabe ang uncertainty. So, dapat may ara ka scenario planning. Gather your managers. And ready yourself for a posture, for a positioning. And then start aiming. Determine your actions and strategic moves. And finally, time to drive your organization. It's all about being an attacker and fire away. Put some science in the way you do things. And step number 4, right? Kagina, hindi ba? Accepting, then believing. And third, scenario planning. Step 4 is what? Motivating the workforce. The biggest impacted in our industry is the workforce. Their fear of job loss, and they're making them low employee morale. Their sense of job security. So, motivate them. You don't want a scenario like this where your people, your workforce, will end up begging. So, how do you motivate them? Be honest. Communicate to them. Hindi nyo sila pwede hambalon, hipos lang kamo. And make the adjustments. That you will survive the turbulence first, focus on human resource, and display tough leadership. So, how do you address human resource? Amuning mga recommendations. Salary cuts, hold back yearly increments, cut down on perks, and most importantly, reskill your workers. Move them to other departments. May ara ko ginbuligan sa Indonesia recently. A 2,000 workforce, ginpahulam ko anay sa isa ka company that needs them. So it was simply a temporary movement just to save their jobs. One company to another company. Mayo lang, kilala ko ni kadwa ka companies. So I made those adjustments to make them realize that there is no need to really take them off in the payroll. So another company gladly embraced them. Ang bako temporary, after 1 year, balik sila. Of course, we asked the labor department. But what I'm saying, folks, you need to be creative in human resource planning. And you need to incentivize them. If you are cutting them, incentivize them. Because cuts are temporary. Right? So, you need to also display leadership. Damo balaydan, rental, interest on loans, and so many other payments. So eliminating the fixed cost will take a long time. So be a tough negotiator to get these costs discounted. Then number 6, cash positioning. Cash is king, and it's best to conserve cash during times of adversity. Firstly, it will help you survive the crisis. And it will give you added ammunition. So how do you improve cash inflow? Sell unproductive assets. Do not be emotional about your assets. Pwede nyo na siya bawiin in the future. If you have limited cash, sell those. Don't be emotional. Seek out working capital loans where you only pay interest. And create cash buffer if you can. Avoid build-up of fixed costs. What else? Step 6, repay expensive fixed interest-bearing loans. Cut down on discretionary spends. Pause on expansion plans and capex. Pay smart means evaluating whom to pay and how much. So these are samples that you can actually do. You don't have to suffer in silence, folks. All you have to do is to address this immediately. And finally, step 7, opportunity seeking. When you have enough cash flow, try to work on cheap valuations and buy businesses. That's what I'm doing now, helping companies. Secure new target markets. Basigin bayaan na sila sa competitors mo. Tie up with a new principal. Buying expensive assets now at a cheap cost, because they're being unloaded, and create new products to meet new demands of the customer. So with all of this, you can bounce back. It may be a bit difficult, but start with the process. Maintaining capital and employees will be critical for businesses to emerge from this crisis on the right foot. So work with your workforce, your suppliers, your creditors, apply for relief funding, because in the end, when you have the strength to sustain your operations, you will come back more positive when the markets improve. So from discomfort, there's a big jump to growth. So I want to just highlight key points. Creating a business model here, right? In these uncertain and continuously changing times. I want to introduce to you a company that is a second generation organization. His name is Richard. He is a mentee. I trained him. They have businesses in Indonesia, Singapore, Malaysia, and Vietnam. They're a huge company, started by the founder, his father. Their business is probably bigger than Ayala. So Richard was an asshole many years ago when the father came to me and asked me if I can mentor his son. This is the picture that depicts Richard, possibly around 4 years ago. Entitled and an SOB, right? Son of a business owner. Then, after 2 years of mentoring him, naglain na siya. He changed. Obviously, he could not probably take so much scolding from me. After 2 years, he finally decided to be a better person. His model of mentoring was the same model I applied sa bata ni Andrew Tan sometime in 2000. It's the same model because I trained Kevin for almost 9 years. So, step number 1, he told me just sometime March, Professor, can I be allowed to make some critical decisions because Dad has tasked me to do whatever it takes to keep the business afloat, and I need your help. So I told him step 1, fundamentally, you've got to have a plan, right? And he said, I have a plan. Remember, we did the planning session August of 2019, and you said we're going to implement it. I said, you need to tweak it because you need to put this in your plan. Digital transformation. Thanks to COVID, digital transformation has been dramatically initiated in just 3 months as opposed to being stubborn for 10 years. So I said, prepare a business plan. Okay? And he came up with the business plan. He tweaked the business continuity plan that we prepared August of 2019. And this was what he added. Culture, disruption, intelligence, and differentiation. He added also making sure there was execution in the design. And I told him, make sure the fundamental areas are there, which included all of this. A market, financial, a product, repurposing, and a people plan. So I'm walking you through the process that we went through. This was March. So gin-tweak niya, and I told him, make sure you have a powerful product. And we call it the CERPSS. It's my acronym that I teach in the business school. And it's something that people from all kinds of businesses must initiate. And I told him, if you have this, you can be bulletproof despite this crisis. So what's a CERPSS? Compelling, emotional, relevant, powerful, sustainable, and strategic product or service. If you have all of this, then you become a powerful product. Then this is what he did. He initiated all of this. Proactive leadership. I call this the 8 Ps. Proactive leadership. Then he went to work with this. Then I told him, I supplied him with this. China will recover soon. Just a question of time. By next year. So let's repivot to Shenzhen and hopefully work something out. Avoid Hong Kong. Let's go to Shenzhen. Because China is there. Look at America, the bellwether of all economies. They're suffering a huge slump. Then, number 2, watch out for your P&L. Cash flow, revenues, financial assessment every single month. Check your liquidity, check your solvency. And then, the third P is obviously knowing where your cash flow is. Part of the P&L. Knowing when to cut, but being rational in cutting expenses. Knowing how to fix leaks in the cash flow system. And next, people policies. Third P, employee welfare, family involvement, inspired leadership, proactive owners, invest in training. And then he said, I will have to cut people. I said, go ahead. But make sure you have to be transparent. Come up with a real people plan. And I told him, as a guide, it will define you. The values that will drive in your decision as a leader. So make sure you pay attention to the values. Show me how you intend to do it. This is what he gave me. I will cut people, but I will make sure we follow certain value drivers. So it was a wonderful playbook from an SOB to a real son of a business owner. And then, fourth, product decisions. This is what he initiated. Repurposing, online, offline, on-site, off-site, creating new products, push for intellectual property, new markets, innovation, product dev. Then, I gave him an example. This is in Manila. As early as mid-year 2019, I recommended to the board to start fabricating beds for a new market. This company I'm helping, I sit as a board advisor, does a lot of fabrication for the aerospace industry. Mga business class nga gali bala, sila na nag-fabricate sa mga aluminum na mga galis sa business class. Sila nag-fabricate sa mga kitchen, sa mga fast food, sila man. Then I said, shift or repurpose. Do not necessarily abandon it. And true enough, they followed. So during the crisis and the lockdown, they were able to sell thousands of beds to the first responders and to other dormitels na ginatawag. So I told them, repurposing is the game plan. And, hambal ko, choose a strategic direction. Amo niya akong guide sa iya. If the model will be disrupted, the extent of the disruption will be huge, then you have a problem. I have another company where I sit in the board. I happen to put in equity. It's what I call the production of masks. I use this model. Declining demand in China sang April, sang nadula ang lockdown. And then they cannot import or they cannot export the masks in the US because of the US-China trade war. So, na-disrupt ang ilang market. Jutay na lang ang demand sa masks sa China. Tiyambal ko, Vietnam is catching up for the biggest mask manufacturer in the world. And there's declining demand. So what should we do? Right? The US-China trade war prohibits the exportation of the masks. So ano ginhimo ko? We decided to bring the factory in the Philippines. And we branded it. This will come out sa Mercury Drug and supermarkets in the next 30 days. Because of that, this is the factory in Quezon City. It's going to manufacture around 5 million masks a month. And We are just waiting for FDA approval. So in just 4 months, we were able to set up a factory because we shifted our business model. If the disruption will continue, China, trade wars, and so on, then shift your business model. If the industry will be disrupted, if you go down to the right, may pula, you need to start shifting and restructuring your company or industry. And if it's gonna be both, ang iguon, then you need to shape a new business. So we told the partners in China, move to Manila, put it up here, supply Philippines, move to Indonesia, and then we import and we export to the US. So, gin-shift namon. Right? So, then I have another repurposing plan for a client of mine in South Asia. They're in the airplane business. Untat ang passengers. Kaya wala, may galupad. I told them, repurpose. So ano sila? Medical evacuation plane for COVID patients and cargo logistics, transporting goods. They're not making as much as it used to be, but at least they are making something to keep their planes afloat. So in the case of Richard, we went through all of this. The 8 P's. Ara na tanan. Right? From proactive leadership, from profit and loss, from people policies, to product dev, to process, to promote, to pivot, and to post-COVID. All of this Richard initiated. And then he executed. That's the beauty of what he did. He implemented with the support of the organization. So why am I saying all of this? At the end of the day, you must have the right people in your organization. You must plan and you must create a game that can result into a bounce back. So I want to close it with several key insights. All of this must be initiated because you are and must do create a strategic culture, looking at all these variables. And you need to create a powerful strategy. Hindi pwede the same thing all over again. And avoid being a copycat. So, finalizing this, you need to address all of this. It's important that you design a strategy. It's important that when you design a strategy, it must all be interconnected. It is important that the board supports it. There's an organizational fit and you have a great story. It's important that you avoid a failure in execution. So when you have this framework, it starts with a business plan. Right? And action then conquers fear. You execute the plan. So to close this, I wanted to give you a snapshot of what's happening in Southeast Asia. Look at China. By 2020, they will be dominating supply and demand, far outstripping the US. China is our neighbor. Look at China now. They're out. There are less masks. This is a very recent picture, barely a few days. They are back. It's a V-shaped recovery. Look at Vietnam and China. Look at Vietnam. 2020, positive GDP. High of 2.8, low of 1.5. 2021, they're back with a vengeance. May ginatawag na revenge consumption, revenge buying. Look at China. Positive GDP all the way. But look at the Philippines. Negative, negative. 2021, we can expect snippets of growth. The rest of our ASEAN neighbors will be down. because a big chunk here is tourism induced. But there is positivity all over outside of the Philippines. Look at Singapore. They have managed to take out infection. It's down to what? Single, double digit. So they're gradually picking up steam. Look at Vietnam. A few months ago, they have started the exodus of Japanese businessmen back to work. So we cannot continue to think local. We need to go out and Asianize our mindset. That's the way to do. Because if you only look at local papers, it's all negative. Plus the election, plus the circus in Congress, there seemed to be no hope in sight. But look outside the Philippines. There's so much positive energy. That's why your role in today's crisis is simple. Change, focus on change, speed, and altitude. Be objective, have a clear long-term goal. Challenge old practices, look outward, set an innovative culture, and let go of idle investments and people that are not cooperating. In the end, as a concluding thought, you need to address this. The 4 M's: manage cash, maintain a workforce, manage customers, and manage your health. These are the 4 M's that you need to address now. And you meet the next customer, the next normal, not the new normal, but the next normal. Then address your governance. Focus and balance business of the business and business of the family, because they must be aligned and they must coexist and pursue governance no matter how and no matter what. These are the things that you have to understand, because when you get all of this, there is now sense in preparing your game plan by reinforcing owner unity, by a collective vision, mission, and values. You reinforce resilience. So just an afterthought before I close, I have a strategic planning session with Asia's best strategic thought leader, Stephen. He's my mentor and a colleague of mine in Singapore. This is on Saturday, this coming Saturday. I hope you can join me in a morning 10 a.m. event. Thank you. And that ends my talk. For those who would like a copy of the business plan template that I gave Richard, please access wbadvisoryasia.com. It's free. You can just take it out and download it. Again, thank you to IBC and thank you to Daily Guardian. Appreciate the time.
Thank you so much, Professor Enrique Soriano III. That was a very, very valuable presentation. And no wonder why your graduate studies students really like you very much, because of the clarity and then the essence of your topic every time you present it. So in the wake of the COVID-19 global pandemic crisis, we actually asked ourselves one question over and over again: why didn't we see it coming? Because it actually rocked the global economy and threatened to destroy the financial systems that we rely on. And one of the most prominent word that I have taken from your lecture is that we should address things where we are, be realist, and create our own defenses. That is very, very clear for me. So this time we will focus on the questions. We will now move on to the open forum, because this is something that everyone would like to go through with you. So the first question is actually thrown by Mr. Terence Oigunco, your favorite student at Ateneo Graduate School. And his question runs this way: majority of MSMEs are still afraid of financial technology or digital transformation. How can national or local government units help in pushing for these essentials that are the future environment that we need to embrace?
That's a very good question of Terence. Well, definitely government intervention is important. Again, believe it or not, no? Vietnam has allocated funds. The government has allocated funds for even artificial intelligence already. Kitaya, digital transformation pa lang may resistance na. So
Mhm.
it encouraged LGUs, no, to allocate a portion of their budget for digital transformation. That's the only way. And encourage local government units all the way to the barangay level to equalize not just education as a budget, but also embed digital transformation. Kaya kung wala ini, then definitely we will all be laggards. No? So it's important that an allocated amount, not necessarily for artificial intelligence, just digital transformation and wiring technologies for the city. We don't have to wait for the national government. Just get the local chief executive to come up with an executive order or a local order, making sure that a certain amount be set aside for this digital transformation, and let the private sector be part of that committee once and for all. Otherwise, my last question to in my article that came out in Daily Guardian this week, what did you do in the pandemic? It's a future question. When the pandemic has been won, anong ginhimo mo as a local government, as a private citizen? Did you do anything? And for me, digital transformation is the next best thing. And that's why LGUs in the private sector must inextricably collaborate. And Iloilo will be a good base to transform this.
Okay, so I would like to give a follow-up question on that, because there are a lot of Ilonggos right now who are so negative about digital transformation, and we think we still have to go back to basic education and then informing them and then making them realize that this is really the valuable and practical way of doing it. So with the big businesses in Iloilo being so focused on their own personal problems, what specific initiative do you think can we do to first make a small group educational or information workshop with these people?
So what I do we're not alone, no? In other countries, if I have a client in Vietnam or Cambodia, it's the same challenge, especially for what we call the dinosaurs. The dinosaurs are the old folks who
Mm-hmm.
cannot seem to appreciate the value of digital transformation. So I have one slide. One time I presented in Vietnam. I said, if you think education is expensive, try ignorance, right?
Mm-hmm. Uh-huh.
It's more expensive. You will have more pain points there. So the best thing right now is to focus on the next generation leaders, where they
Okay.
can be more open and they embrace digital transformation wholeheartedly, right? That's
Mm-hmm.
the first thing. Let's look at the younger generation, and then let's put our money where our mouth is. Because at the end of the day, we need to start education, because education is power. Now, if the senior generations were not provoked enough to transform their initiatives to a certain level of technology, then I want to bet my last centavo on the young. So it
Mm-hmm.
starts with our schools, it starts with the business owners, and this could be an initiative of the Iloilo Business Club in collaboration with the LGU.
Okay, thank you. That's very, very clear. I have here a statement from Mr. Felix Revilla, and then he said that, quoted from George Bernard Shaw, that the reasonable man adapts himself to the world, the unreasonable one persists in trying to adapt the world to himself. Therefore, all progress depends on the unreasonable man. So this sounds very, very interesting. And thank you so much, Mr. Villa, for pinpointing that very, very valuable quote. So we are actually waiting for some reactions and questions from the members of IBC and from the rest of the participants to just go to the chat box, and then we will be very willing to throw it to our resource speaker. But while we are waiting for that, I would like to ask Professor Soriano, how can small businesses, because these small businesses do not have other options anymore, like myself, we have a coffee shop. We closed it yesterday. Our initial funding for that is 1 million. We operated January, we closed at March. We opened like last June, and then we closed it yesterday. So 1 million gone, and then we are crying about it. How can we survive and then turn this heavy blow pandemic into an opportunity? We have nowhere to go.
Okay. So the problem here started with the health crisis, and then it metastasized into a financial crisis. Uh, Even Joey Concepcion said that, if you feel you're already spending your personal money to keep the business afloat, why don't you step back and pause a bit? So
Yeah.
pausing is not necessarily closing, right? Just stepping back and regroup and prepare a plan, right?
Okay.
Because these are all temporary. Yes, we're sometimes desperate, but my model is simple. Pause, plan. In my article at Daily Guardian, reflect first and then reboot. So when you
Okay.
plan, look at our website, get that business plan, put some meat into the skeleton because it's an outline. It's 20 pages, I think. And then reflect and look at the CRPS. It has to be compelling, emotional, relevant, powerful, sustainable, and strategic. Now, on the issue of funding, FNF, family and friends,
Okay.
banks,
Uh-huh.
financial institutions are not ready. Now, if there's a huge funding requirement, maybe let me know because I have facilities that I may be able to help. But
Okay.
at the end of the day, if it's a small business, it's time to simply regroup, revisit, negotiate with your tenants, give a certain level of compassionate relief on the rent. And kung hindi pagit pwede, get marriages. Kwa kasang partners who can put in equity. Make sure you have wonderful shareholders agreement. In short, money may be the issue. At the end of the day, please, there are many creative things that you can work on. FNF, family, friends, or financial intermediaries. Those are the things that you can explore at this point. No? Because we are going to what? 3, 4, 5 months left. That vaccine might happen.
Okay.
Be ready. In short, brace yourself for the recovery and calibrate your organization. And maybe baguhon mo ang imo nga style compared to before, nga gahulak ka lang kliyente. That's why digital, like what Terence mentioned, is important.
Okay. Thank you so much.
You're welcome.
I have here a question from Noel Natividad. Like, Professor, what is your take on using insurance as a tool in risk management amidst COVID?
Oh, that's a nice question. Insurance, I use that all the time, especially for business owners, no, especially for family businesses, no. We call it business continuity, a remedy for business continuity. You don't have to wait for you to die to get insurance. No, you can already use insurance to fund some initiatives depending on the terms of the insurance. May mga trust insurance, damo klase insurance mo. So it's important that you may want to seek availments of the insurance because there are term insurance that will fall due and you use the money to recapitalize your business. Right? Now, if there are two partners who owns the business, they can both insure themselves. So if one dies, one buys out the business, not using company money, but using the proceeds of the insurance. So, damo option, pwede mo himuon. And yes, insurance is a wonderful model and platform to refinance any business.
Okay. Thank you. I have here another question from Noel Bernasol. How can the economy possibly take off when money is not circulating or has limited circulation due to the various factors inherent with the COVID phenomena? the purchasing power of the massa, even most consumers, or the mass base of our economy has decreased remarkably or not that open? What could possibly be a silver lining, a specific action to pursue to ignite or catalyze the economy?
Well, the private sector cannot do this on its own, no? That is a powerful question that should be directed to the government,
Mhm,
because the government came up with several stimulus packages, and
mhm,
I have to express my unfortunate and displeasure on the way perhaps the initiatives of Congress were made. You see, Congress, some friends of mine in Congress asked me for a position on the stimulus package. I made the presentation. I gave them wonderful research material, and I used practically a big chunk of the Asian market as a good comparative. And
mhm,
there were only three factors that I requested them to do. First, instead of giving ayuda to those that don't have jobs, why don't you create what I call employment relief?
mhm,
Meaning, for a 10,000 peso salary, one third of that should come from the government by way of this package. The
mhm,
other third will be subsidized by the employer.
mhm,
So out of the 10,000, perhaps 3,000 mahalin sa gobyerno, 3,000 mahalin sa employer, and whatever is left, subsidy na iya sang empleyado. Now, if there's a cut, they retain their jobs, they still get 6 to 7,000 pesos.
mhm,
The government or the Congress did not initiate that. Instead, ginhaboy nila ang kwarta sa mga kung sino-sino lang.
mhm,
No? Number two, that is employment relief. Second, rental relief. Ginhimo na sa mga private sector developers, mga landlords. Okay na siya. But hindi lang siya consistent. No? Number three, regulatory relief. What does regulatory relief mean? Ano, anay? Hold anay tanan payments sa SSS, sa pag-ibig, tanan. Kay ti nabudlayan si employer mo. Right? Until such time maka-recover. Now, this did not came from me. This was a product of so many research that we initiated sa office ko to tell Congress that there are many opportunities that you can work on. Ang problema, I guess it's also politics that they had to distribute it on a bigger scale. So to answer Noel, it is an issue that the government has a huge stake and the private sector can simply implement. Now, locally, I was asked a question also in a Singapore forum. What can private sector do? I said, if you're an association, example, IBC, you can create your own, what I call a fund. A fund that will help fellow members subsidize and provide financing under an arm's length arrangement. So for instance, IBC can pull among those businesses that have been less impacted, or they can get a facility that will provide funding for the SME members of IBC. And arm's length arrangement until ma-tie down sila. When the markets improve and demand comes back, gradually payoff can happen. That is my recommendation to the private sector. So either way, it should be initiated.
Okay. Thank you very much, Professor, for that. And this time, I would like to give way to Mr. Francis Centoral's question. This goes this way. The pathway to our post-pandemic economic success will in part be built on improving our stock of knowledge. As we know more, we grow more. What is your prescription for the education sector of Iloilo?
Well, I don't know. I've been based in Manila and Singapore for the past 35 years. But for me, knowledge is power. If I were to put the pecking order of things as to what could be the most important investments for the city of Iloilo, for me, it's all about education. If that could be the biggest chunk, for me, education and health are critical. And part of education is really information technology and digital transformation. So, I would encourage people in government, in the LGU sector, to think about this, come to their senses. Now, after all this politics, it's important that investment should now be given to education. For me, that's non-negotiable. In China, that started in the actually that started in the 80s, and the game plan of Deng Xiaoping simply was education for all, for free, no exceptions. So now, look at the transformation after 40 years. So, this is not a blue flame. But if we all put our hearts and minds together, education may just be the biggest steroids that Iloilo will be able to get in the coming years. So for me, it's pump investments on education.
Okay. The participants seem to be very, very closely listening to what you are saying, because actually this is my first time also to listen to a resource speaker who speaks very, very practical, easy to understand, not theory based. That is why my notes here are really filled with all the good points that you have mentioned. So we have here our last question, or two more questions, Professor. This question came from Herminio Maravilla. What is the effect of COVID on OFW and outsourcing inflow slowdown to the Philippine economy and its future outlook?
Good question. The impact is around 30%, which means the biggest hit was obviously in the Middle East. The next wave of some hits will depend on the Trump-Biden election, which is the North American market. But traditionally, the OFW market in the Middle East and here in Asia, which is Singapore, have been the most impacted. As soon as the recovery happens in the next 2 quarters, hopefully jobs will be regained and reclaimed by Filipinos. And it's probably going to slow for another quarter and things will come back. Now, that's the negative side. The positive side is if you have an eye for OFW markets, they are known to be resilient. They will have double jobs and triple jobs. If they lose their jobs with one, they would likely slug it out with another job or another job in the evening. So even if this temporary setback is as low as 30%, you can expect that they will be sending money wherever the source will be, just to keep their families here in the Philippines afloat. So give or take, the drop will probably continue probably in the next 3 to 4 months, and things will be rosy after that. That's what we are anticipating for the OFW market. So a few more, 1 or 2 more, maybe 1 or 3 to 4 months, a bit of suffering, then things will perk up.
Okay.
I wish I can show a lot of slides because we researched on the OFW market, but that's essentially the synopsis of that research that we initiated for the OFW market.
Okay. Okay, so this time we give way to Miles Joseph Sotelo. There are businesses that rely heavily on loans, and given the conservative stand of banks to hold loan increases amidst economic recession, will private equity groups be a good option for them if there are no F&F? Do they have appetite to invest in Iloilo-based businesses?
Well, I can speak for myself here in Manila and in Singapore. We do a lot of heavy on mergers and acquisitions now. We do a lot of marriages, instant marriages, meaning one without resources, one with resources. They appear to be in alignment and they complement their values. We arrange fixed marriages for businesses. Number two, private equity may not be as robust now because the expectation for rate of return of the private equity players is so high. So it is not something that Iloilo businessman might consider kay kadako sang ginapangayo sang private equity.
Mhm.
They would rather go to the banks because of the lower interest rates as mandated by BSP. Mula na galing, weather, banks are getting to be very strict because they have to put in loan risk provisions. So to answer that, the private equity market is encountering resistance even here even here in Manila. No, unless these private equity firms will slide their expectation below 7%, basic kadtod. No? But sa subong-subong 10% sila eh. So hindi gid appealing sa mga businesses, especially sa conservative businesses in Iloilo. Maybe next year, basic pwede.
Okay. So this would be our last question from Noel. Digitalization is definitely the road for economic survival, and with the reach, which is worldwide, is very promising. So this is an appeal for big businesses and is very exciting for small and private entrepreneurs. From whom can we possibly approach to be able to get a reliable assistance on the digital commerce know-how to implement?
Oh, there are many. You let me know. I can hook you up with some great Singapore players who can work on digital transformation for the local businesses and even local governments. No, normally source talent. I used to source talent in Hong Kong, but because of the crisis there, we have all pivoted, whether it's wealth preservation, whether it is trust arrangements. We all direct our efforts in Singapore if the requirement is an Asian country. So there are damo man kuluan. No? So it's a question of whether we have the will to pursue this relentlessly. No, otherwise it will all be a waste of time. Also, if we're not going to pursue this.
Okay. Thank you very much, Professor. Before we move on to the last part of Ma'am Luisa Segovia, would you like to ask your last question, Ma'am Marisa? Can you do it live, Ma'am?
Nakamute.
Nakamute ata si Ma'am. Actually, she is typing. Ma'am Marisa, would you like to throw your question live to Professor Soriano?
Hi, good morning. Good noon, Professor Soriano. Thank you for being with us today.
Thank you.
It's not really a question, but I got so much information from you, tying in perhaps in my work in the RDC 6, possibilities for government and private sector collaboration. Although it can be challenging owning up to either side of the equation, government versus our businessmen here in Iloilo City, and to move forward with what you suggested. But nevertheless, it's an opportunity. And based on questions from Miles and from Sir Noel Bersaula, there are also platforms where IBC as a group can take a look at the offerings that we can do moving forward in our second gen of Board of Trustees for IBC. We are in a family business and we are local, similarly with both businesses. But personally, I also saw some bright perspectives in the U-shaped projection for our side of the world and our country. And perhaps a little tweaking with your template business plan would help most small businesses within the year one, which is 2021, to the 2023 to 2025 projection. But again, I would encourage everybody not to be very fearful, but on the other hand, rather than be depressed, show the good leadership that we are and the resiliency of the Ilonggos so that we can also move forward with our own businesses, whether it's big or small. Thank you, Professor Soriano.
Thank you. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Ma'am Segovia. Before we end, Professor Soriano, would you like to give your parting words or statement?
Well, thank you, Rowena. Appreciate again. Thank you to Manchi, to Terence, and of course to Alenson. Thank you also to Daily Guardian, and of course to IBC celebrating their 30th year. One thing is clear. I presented those slides to be very truthful and to be very honest about the whole scenario. But there's always a lot of things happening. I'm always asked this question. There's so much negativity in our surroundings. Only if you look at it from a local perspective. But I guess my orientation has been obviously very Asian. So therefore, I encourage everyone to think local, but look at the outside. There's what I call the grass is greener from the outside. And therefore, since recovery is almost there, it is time to prepare. It is time to reboot. It is time to clarify issues. It is time to take out the elephant in the room, if you may. Whatever operational issues, inefficiencies that you have, this is the best time to recalibrate. We were given 7 months to do whatever it takes to clean up our organization. We have become resilient despite the hiccups. So therefore, my advice to my fellow Ilonggos is to do now whatever it takes. You have barely 1 quarter left to prepare for the positive energy that will pervade us starting next year. Because other countries that I showed you, Vietnam, Taiwan, and China, are already back on track. We don't have to wait for that day nga naka-recover na tanan. By the time it's too late. So, the journey to 1,000 leagues begins with 1 step. And hope is not a strategy. Action is. I think that is key here.
Okay. Thank you so much. Before we end, we would like to thank again our corporate sponsors, Spring Valley Tech Corporation. And for all your Globe connectivity and GCash inquiry, you just call 0917-100493. And then Globe My Business and GCash. I'll repeat again, we actually have 10 winners who will be getting a GCash prize, and then they will just notify you through your email. So we got this upon your registration, and they're going to raffle it in a few while. And then thank you so much, Globe My Business, also for giving away 500 through GCash to the first 6 people who asked questions for our open forum this morning. Thank you. So it appears that we have no further questions today. I would like to say thank you to our esteemed guest speaker, Professor Enrique M. Soriano III. We have learned that as we continue to navigate the ongoing COVID pandemic, building resilience is truly becoming one of the most important skills one can cultivate, that businesses, big or small, must remain agile and proactive in their decision-making to ensure long-term business continuity and recovery. I hope today's episode has been beneficial for everyone. Tomorrow, business resiliency. We have again another batch of good speakers tomorrow to give us another valuable lessons and the visuals of what's happening around. Always remember, participants, that resilience is knowing that you are the only one that has the power and responsibility to pick yourself and your business up. Okay? So thank you for participating. And I would like to say good day, everyone. Thank you so much, Professor Soriano. I really enjoyed your talk this morning. And thank you. Yeah, thank you. Thank you, Sir Terence, for hosting, and to IBC for inviting me to moderate this morning's activity. Thank you so much, everyone. You may now disconnect from the call. Thank you and have a great day.